Hey guys, it's Jessica, and today we're gonna do a big, almost full face, and by full face I mean just the face, not totally the eyes. You'll see what I mean. I'm trying a ton of Fenty Beauty today. Some of it I've already tried, but the other day I was at Sephora and there's so much new that's been released from the brand since the last time I tried something new from the brand. There's like 50 concealers they just launched and 50 shades of concealer, not 50 different types of concealer. That would be insane. New lip gloss shade. I haven't tried the little sticks that she came out with long ago, so I have a lot to try here. I spent way too much money at Sephora. What else is new? I figured we'd try it on together today. Like I said, most of this is new to me, so this truly is more of a first impressions. I will update you guys in the next month or two on my thoughts on all of this once I've tried it for longer, but we are gonna do a wear test today. So especially by the end of the day, I'll check in with you guys. We can really look at how is the foundation wearing, how's the concealer wearing, how are like the stick products. So we're just gonna do it all. Let's go and get into it. So I've already moisturized my face, but the first thing we're going to try out together today is the Fenty Beauty foundation. I have not tried this for a reason. I had heard that it wasn't great for dry skin. And so me having really more normal to dry skin, really bordering more on normal now that I've got my skincare kind of in check, I'm like, maybe now is the time to try it, now that my skin is kind of chilled out a bit. So we're gonna see, but I figure to make this its most effective self, I should put a hydrating primer underneath. Now, I have tried the Fenty Beauty primer. I just didn't like it. I didn't feel like it did much. I don't still have it, but it almost it's like the same kind of packaging as the foundation, just with a lighter bottle. But I felt like it wasn't quite as moisturizing as I like underneath the foundation. I know some people swear by using the primer with this, and that's how it's meant to be used. I used it with like 7 different foundations that I already love, and none of them really looked good on top of it. So that's why I ended up decluttering it. That's why I don't have it, why I didn't want to buy it again just for the sake of this video, because I knew I just didn't like it. Now, if you have super oily skin, maybe you'll like it. If you've tried it and you've made it work or you really love it, please let us know below. What do you use it with? How are you using it? Just so we can kind of, maybe what skin type do you have, to get an idea of if you're looking at the primer. Let's see what other people think too, because obviously I'm just one person, it's just my opinion. Foundation wise, let's put on a hydrating primer. I'm gonna use the Laura Mercier hydrating primer. It's one of my favorites. It really is, you know, more of a moisturizer than anything, and that's why I really like it. I already have an SPF and moisturizer on. I put on this morning, so keeping that in mind, earlier this morning I should say, keeping that in mind that I've already moisturized, but this is just an extra layer of moisture. So you might notice I avoided my nose. I'm gonna use, I know it's overkill, but I guess that's my other middle name. Peter Thomas Roth Skin to Die For. This is like my favorite primer. It's just kind of pore filling, more smoothing than anything. And I just feel like foundation sits beautifully on top. I really just focus this on the center of my face, a little bit on my chin, and a little bit there, but that's about it. This is a very beautifying primer. It's one that I really feel like makes a difference in the wear time of your foundation, especially on your nose. If you're like me, I feel like I'm always itching my nose, so then the foundation always wears off there. And the lip balm I'm wearing, if you're curious, is the Kapari Lip Love. So I picked out the shade 150. I spent way too long trying to shade match, and I feel like 150 is a lot more neutral than the shades just above and below it, which I was like, thank you, because I feel like a lot of the foundations I try end up being way too yellow on me, so I'm playing around with mixers. I don't think this is a perfect match, but I feel like it's pretty close. So I figured today half of my face I'll do with the sponge just to see how it applies, and the other half I'll use a brush. I'll link the sponge and brush that I'm using down below as well if you are wanting to try it, but this is just the L'Oreal one. So yeah, I feel like it's not a bad shade match at all. But we're just gonna start on this side of the face. I feel like it took about all of that first squirt just to do my cheek. And it's not the sponge necessarily, because I know that I use the sponge all the time with all kinds of foundations, and that's never a problem. So just something to note. So let me zoom you guys in so you can really see. I feel like you can still see a little bit of the texture on my face here. I obviously avoided my eye area more than I usually do. I kind of got a little foundation because I bought the concealer and I want that to really work and see how it works. But looking at just the foundation, no foundation, I mean, it's definitely covering a lot, and that was just, in my opinion, one layer. And I feel like I said, you can still see a little bit of like my peach fuzz and stuff like that. I don't totally mind that, but like, you know when you're in a store and you catch a glimpse of yourself in a mirror, like for example, I was at Sephora and I was looking at the foundation I was wearing and I was like, ooh, like that's not flattering on my skin, you know? But I feel like this isn't as bad as that one was. And I can't even really tell you what it was because I had mixed like 3 foundations. So it's like, I'm gonna use this Sonia Kashuk flat top foundation brush I've been enjoying, and I'm just gonna push the foundation into the skin and then blend it. I feel like it applied about the same, both with the brush and the sponge. I don't think that made a huge difference. With some foundations, they really do lend themselves to being applied with one tool over the other. Like they maybe look better with the sponge, but I don't feel like this one, it didn't really make a huge difference which way I applied it, which is nice. It's a little more easy to work with. Again, I'm curious to see how this wears throughout the day because like it really nicely covered. I do think it is definitely more neutral than a lot of the ones, but you can still see it's not a perfect match. It's still slightly yellow. I'm curious to see, like I said, with the check-ins, how this wears, especially in the areas that I always get wear off, like on my nose, up there, and my chin, definitely. So we will see. But thinking about the packaging, I really like that it has a pump. It's this really pretty frosted glass. The packaging is never lacking with Fenty Beauty. It's always really pretty and really well made. So at least, you know, and it just looks pretty in a makeup bag, you know. So while we're zoomed in, let's talk about the concealer. It is the Fenty Pro Filt'r Instant Retouch Concealer. Again, this just launched. There's 50 shades. As I swatched everything, 150, yet again, was the most neutral one around my skin tone. And I don't like to go crazy light with my concealer. I really do like it to be closer to my skin tone. I mean, obviously it's gonna be lighter, but like I said, this wasn't as yellow as the other ones around it. So maybe that's too much. I don't know about the coverage. I haven't watched any videos because I wanted to really see how I feel. So I'm using this blue concealer sponge from L'Oreal, and then I'll also use a brush on the other side. Let's just see. Well, it's super brightening. I think it actually blended in pretty quickly, considering it's definitely a little, it's not quite as creamy as a lot of concealers I typically go for. This one, it's almost more like tacky, and then once it sets once you blend it in, because it's definitely, it's still slightly wet, but it's setting pretty quickly, you know. But I have a feeling this is, because it is a little bit more high coverage, you're seeing a shadow there, but because it is a little bit more high coverage, I have a feeling I'll want to set this with a powder. I did buy a powder of hers, so we will use that here in a second. So that side's done. Let's use the concealer for the other side, but this time let's use a brush. So it's really, really settling into my fine lines, and not like in a, oh, it's really just creasing. It's just really showing texture, and I haven't even put powder on top of it yet. So that's concerning for if you're like me and you do have, you know, fine lines and you do have crinkles. I always call them under eye crinkles because that's what I feel like they are. It's just already looking textured. Like this side with the brush looked textured right away. You know what I mean? So I don't know, guys. So I'm gonna zoom out a bit because I wanna show you this powder, and the packaging's kind of comically humongous. So it is this powder. The packaging is beautiful. If not a little bit overkill, but it's pretty. It's their Pro Filt'r Instant Retouch Setting Powder. So I got in the shade Butter. There were a bunch of people swatching it at the same time as me, and I was like, I was trying to get it swatched and out of the way of everyone. So this, I think, is the closest to me. However, it's definitely more yellow toned, so we're gonna see if I like it or not. But we're gonna start by setting the under eye. I'm using the Real Technique setting powder, or sorry, setting brush. And a lot of it came up when I peeled off that, but let's just kind of, yeah, there we go. So I'm using about this much, maybe not even. And I'm just going to get rid of the crinkles for a sec and set it. Actually not bad. It wasn't as brightening as I would have guessed, which again, I'm okay with, but it has a smell. Not a bad smell, but there's some kind of smell there. I can't smell it when I'm smelling it, but I can smell it when I'm applying it. That didn't make any sense. I think you guys knew what I meant. Does anyone bake with these? I'm assuming people bake. I just don't bake, so that's not typically anyway. I have before. I just don't. Again, I feel like a lot of it just really increases the texture on my skin. So I don't think the powder is bad. But again, let me zoom in. The texture, man, it's really prominent. It's really, really prominent. So, but again, I don't think that's necessarily the fault of the powder. I actually feel like the powder helped a little bit. I just think it might be that concealer. We're gonna see. So the next thing I wanted to try is their Matchsticks. So I bought the trio that is it for the shade light. I think it was the lightest one they have. And I love that they are magnetic. I just think that's cute. Is it necessary? I was showing my husband Tyler and he was like, why do they magnetize? I was like, I don't know. They're just cute, Tyler. But it is kind of cute. And if you are using them together every time, then it's definitely convenient. So it comes with a lighter skin stick for like highlighting, I guess. I mean, you could maybe use it for concealing. I don't know. And then it comes with a darker one. It's like their gray tone one in amber. That's maybe better for contouring. And then this other one, it's their shimmer skin stick, because the other two are matte, and it's in Starstruck. So it's, I'm assuming, supposed to be a highlight. It's kind of pinky tone, so we'll see if I can wear it as a highlight. It might be more of a blush topper for me. But just by swatching them, let's start with the light one. It's creamy. It's definitely maybe a little too deep for my skin tone. But when you're doing trios like this, I think it's a little difficult because they only have so many trios they're selling. And so obviously it's gonna be more difficult to find like the perfect trio when you could buy these separate and get the exact shades you want. So this is that shade Amber. It's definitely more contoury. Just curious to see how it kind of blends even with the finger. You can definitely see where that initial swatch is. So I'm not going to apply this harshly straight to the face. What I might do is actually get it on like my brush and apply it that way. So I'm just using a stipple brush. You could use one from e.l.f. This one's from Morphe. No, I'm not affiliated with them at all. But I'm just gonna get some of this and try. If it doesn't work, then I'll apply it. But I've definitely got some on there, and I just want like a soft diffusion of this shade. Ooh. You could also use a sponge. I might try that on part of it. But this is typically one way, not typically, I guess. It's one way I apply cream products. But when they're as kind of hard as this one, it's creamy, but it's, you know, it's not a cream like that's like in a little pan. Sometimes it's better to do it this way, because even that, you can really see it. You know what I mean? And that wasn't even directly applied. So next, I'm gonna try a sponge. Just get some on there. This is typically how I apply product like this, and just kind of place it where you want it. You could use a smaller sponge if you want. This tends to look slightly more diffused and natural, because again, it's naturally kind of diffusing it out because it's wet, it's soaking up some of the product in the sponge in a good way. Just kind of applying a little bit up there. This isn't really a bronzer shade, but just to kind of keep things even on my face, I figure. Okay, I definitely like the way it applied with the sponge better than the stippling brush. So I'm gonna kind of use the sponge to help blend that. Hopefully it's not like set into the skin. And you can always use your foundation side of the sponge to help blend. So I don't hate it. I feel like that shade was a decent shade if you're anywhere near my skin tone for contour slash kind of diffused bronzy looks, you know. Yes, obviously there's a difference between contour and bronze, but we're not getting into that here. I kind of use them interchangeably because I'm not doing anything very harsh on my face. I don't really know how I want to use this lighter shade. I might just use it to try to like lighten this area and just see how it blends. So I applied this one straight to it. I'm using a clean part of it. Let's just kind of blend it in. Definitely a little bit lighter. Maybe I'll try it just down my nose. I don't do like nose contour, but just to kind of lighten the area anyway. It's okay. I'm sure you could even, like, if you really wanted that line to be a little cleaner, obviously I don't, and I'm just kind of diffusing it, but you could do that if you wanted maybe more of a harsh. You could do that and then bake with the powder, just to show you different possibilities with it. So I don't know how much use this will get in my collection, to be honest with you. It's not, I don't think it's bad. It's, you know, the same consistency as the darker shade is. I just don't use matte sticks like that very often unless I'm just concealing with it. So we'll see. You know, maybe I'm speaking too soon, and I'll play with it and discover a great use for it. So let me know, how do you use that shade? Do you use it like I did? Last shade in the trio is Starstruck, and that's the one that was kind of more of a highlighter. So I'm gonna grab the other partially clean part, and I'm just gonna kind of tap it in my highlight area and just see. Because like I said, I think it's a little deep for my skin tone, so I could use it as a blush topper if I wanted. That's actually really pretty. Again, you could use a brush, you could use your fingers, however you want to use it. I just prefer using a sponge. That actually looks really nice. And this is one of those kinds of things that you could tap a little bit up there, depending on the shade you got, just to add a little glow to your forehead. You could tap it to your brow bone. Of course, I'm about to put eyeshadow on and stuff, but you can see that it really added that glow there, which is just really pretty. Before I do my brows and eyes, I figure I should probably set the rest of my face. Now, this is a step that I don't do every single day, but for the sake of this video, I will, and it'll probably, and by probably I mean it should completely help hold all of this makeup in its place. But we used a lot of cream on our face, so this usually will do the trick in helping to set it. So we're gonna do a velour puff for this and truly set it. You can buy velour puffs on Amazon for really, really, really cheap. I'm just gonna kind of roll it into the skin. The one downside would be that that highlight was definitely toned down a bit. I might at the end of this look, you can still see it though. I could always put more on top of it. Some cream highlights can do that really well, like the Hourglass Vanish highlighting stick can go on top of powder beautifully. It doesn't move anything around. So I might test this and see, can this go on top of powder as well? Because that's the one thing I didn't necessarily want toned down. So let me do my brows and I will be right back. So the next product I picked up is the Fenty Pro Filt'r Amplifying Eye Primer. I feel like I've not really heard anyone talk about this, but it comes with just a doe foot. It's definitely a universal, you know, translucent kind of shade. Feels slightly tacky, which is typically what you want. You can see it did definitely kind of blank out my eye a little bit in a good way. Like it covered some of the like discoloration, veining that a lot of us can see, that, you know, you kind of want a clean slate before you're putting on shadow. And this is tacky and it covers that. And those are like two of the big things for me with eye primer. The third, of course, being, does it hold on to shadow really well. I don't have any Fenty palettes or anything like that. None of them have really caught my eye. So I'm just gonna throw on the Persona Identity palette. You can buy this at Ulta, I know, it's one of my favorites, but it's one that I know performs really well. So I wanna see, okay, you know, this is a decent shadow. I feel like if I know going into it that I'm using good shadows that usually stay in place, I can really see if the primer itself is working, because if it is not, if the shadows suddenly start fading, then we know it's not the shadow, it's the primer. You guys know what I mean. So we're gonna do a really, really simple look. I'm just using the matte beige shade in here to kind of set the primer a bit. I do this every single day. I'm gonna use the shade Seductive. It's kind of this, what would you call this? Kind of cool toned bronze. And I'm literally just gonna put this all over the lid. So I'm just gonna take that crease brush and just kind of blend that into the crease so there's no harsh edges. And then I'm just gonna grab a little bit of Maverick here, which is this cool toned deep brown, and just put a little bit of that in the outer crease, outer corner area. So I feel like it did exactly as I'm used to this palette doing. You know, I feel like it grabbed onto the shadow really well. Nothing looks weird and patchy, at least based on the skills that I have. So I'm going to finish the eye look with some liner and mascara, and we're gonna come back and talk about all of the lip products from Fenty. So I wanted to talk about lip products. I thought I was recording, I wasn't, so I already put one of them on my lips, but I wanted to first talk about my first love from Fenty ever, and it is their gloss bombs. I originally had the original, which is called Fenty Glow, and this one is more of a like deeper peach shade, but these smell like my childhood. It's like the Bonnabelle like lip glosses, you know what I mean? They smell like that. So the newest shade I just put on my lips is in the shade Fussy, and it's more of a pink tone when you compare it to the other one. And so I just put it on my lips, and it's just beautiful and glossy and comfortable. I love my Dose of Colors lip glosses, and those are still my number one, but these are a really, really close second. And they're very different. These are more luminizing and glossy, and they smell, again, amazing. Dose of Colors ones they smell like vanilla, which is also amazing, but just different. And they are more like a color to them. Does that make sense? Whereas these are more like shiny and glossy. Although the shade from Dose of Colors, Jazzy, kind of reminds me of the Fenty Glow one. Anyway, I love these. I highly recommend if you only try one thing from Dose of Colors, this honestly should be it. They are amazing, amazing. Fussy might have just kicked the Glow one out of the park because I like the more pinky tone shade even better. And by the way, if you were curious what mascara and liner and stuff I put on my eyes and my brow product, all of them are drugstore. I will link them below. I'm trying to be better about writing in the description box what I actually have on my face, unless obviously I showed it. But I want to try this next lip product on. This is the Fenty Mattemoiselle Plush Matte Lipstick. I bought it in the shade Thick. This was clearly the most sought after color there because there was one left and all the others were like fully stocked. So I just thought that was interesting. Let me show you a close up before I use it. Look at that beautiful FB. Isn't that pretty? Anyway, I'm about to ruin it. Let's swatch it. It is very, very pigmented. One swipe. I went back and forth once just to get a full swatch. But it's a really pretty shade, kind of a deeper rose with like a slight brown tint. Wow. It's a very thin feel to it. I mean, it feels like a traditional bullet lipstick. You know, when you're applying it, it's creamy, but it feels like a lipstick because that's what it is. I'm digging this shade though, but it feels good. Like it's surprisingly kind of more comfortable than some. It reminds me honestly of a thinner version of the NARS Audacious lipsticks, which you guys know are one of my top favorite lipsticks. Feels like that. These are definitely creamier than like my Marc Jacobs La Marque ones that I love. Those are creamy, but this is even easier to glide on, if that makes sense. So you don't need to, you don't feel like you're pulling on your lips to apply it. It applies really easily. I'm digging it. And I really like this shade. I feel like it's kind of becoming. It's certainly deeper. It'd be perfect for fall, but I mean, please, you can wear it year round. Winter, obviously. I'm like in the mood that I'm like, oh yeah, it's spring. I'm like, no, there's snow outside my window, but I'm like in a spring mindset. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe that's a good thing. So I'm gonna wipe this off just to try this last product on my lips. And this is a newer release. It's the Fenty Stunna Lip Paint, and it's in the shade Uncuffed. They only had a couple of shades. This was the only one that really spoke to me personally. It's really pretty packaging. Kind of reminds you of like the Louboutin things, but look at this. It's a very liquidy, almost lacquer. And my understanding is that it's supposed to dry down. It's long wear, yeah. So this will be what we test in this wear test. We'll see how long I can keep it on before I lose my mind because I really don't like matte liquid lips anymore. I'm done with it. It dries my lips out, but my lips are very moisturized. They're not chapped today or anything like that. So I figured today's a really good day to really test this out. So wish me luck. Wow. It's very, very thin. So if you've tried those liquid lipsticks that are a little bit thicker, this is not it. But it dries fast. I mean, this really, I just put it on and it's already dry. I'm looking at the swatch. That one's drying really, really quickly as well. I should probably wipe it off before it stains. So we are going to really do a true wear test. It is 209. Okay, don't read my Twitter feed. Well, I guess you can. Anyway, it is 209 and we're gonna see how long this wears. All of it, the foundation with the powder on top. I just realized we did not put on a blush. I don't have one, obviously, from Fenty Beauty. But that's okay because I feel like we'll really get to focus on that highlight, which actually I was going to reapply, but I think it looks nice. The contour stick, the eye primer, all of it. So I will check in a little while. Okay, so it's about 4:20, so it's been almost dead on 2 hours since I put everything on. Let's talk about the lips. I've been drinking coffee and I feel like it's still really dry. It's not it does transfer a bit. Interesting. But nothing crazy, you know what I mean? It's not a wet lipstick kind of thing. You can see a little bit kind of got pushed up from drinking coffee. Nothing too crazy. It's definitely dried down, but it doesn't feel super drying yet. But it's definitely dry, you know what I mean? So we'll see how it kind of wears. The foundation doesn't look like it's changed at all. The contour's still there, the highlight's still there. I really do like the way that highlight looks, the shimmery one. I'm kind of surprised. My eyeshadow hasn't budged. Again, it was a pretty light wash of color that I was putting on anyway. And it hasn't changed, so eye primer's holding up. The concealer, you can still see the, you know, kind of crepiness on my under eye. Again, it hasn't changed from the way I applied it, but it's definitely still there. So we'll see as we continue to wear on, but so far everything's wearing pretty well. I figured I would check in. It's about 7:41, so it's been on for what, over 5 hours. The lips, I've been drinking tea and water and stuff like that. The middle has definitely worn off. It kind of looks cool and like ombre, but it's definitely, again, it's dry. It feels now like a liquid lip, which is what it is, you know. I'm just realizing as I've looked at this makeup in different lighting, it just looks like I'm wearing makeup. Now, obviously I'm wearing a full face of makeup, obviously, you know, but I certainly have plenty of foundations that I love that don't look like I'm wearing caked on makeup, and I feel like this does. Now, it looks nice. Like, I feel like by adding the light color in the center of my forehead, it definitely is adding some dimension to my face. That concealer is super brightening. Really, it really is one of the more brightening concealers that I own. But again, you can just see all of that texture even from a couple feet away, which is not really my cup of tea. Now, I feel like if I were taking photos, this would be a good concealer and maybe even foundation as long as they were from a distance. You know what I mean? Because it definitely gives that kind of flawless coverage. We're gonna be eating dinner here in just a little bit. I'm looking in the mirror, that's why I look. But I feel like the contour stuff kind of stayed on pretty well. The highlight's still there. None of that has budged, so I can't decide if I can attribute it just to the contour, the sticks themselves, or the powder. I have to assume it's the powder doing that. And perhaps it's the powder that's making this look textured, but I mean, it just is what it is. I'll check in one more time before I take my makeup off tonight. Okay, it is literally 10:35, so it's been a little over 8 hours since I've had this on. The lip, of course, super dry, but also mostly gone. Just, you know, that's how most liquid lips wear off. It is what it is. I think it's a good liquid lipstick if you like that kind of thing. I just don't. I think the eye primer did a great job. It held on to the shadow just perfectly. There's no like creasing or anything like that. So I totally would recommend the eye primer. Again, I do think you can get eye primers for cheaper at the drugstore. But you know, if you've got a gift card or you can just support it, I think it's a good eye primer. I will definitely use it and probably use it up. I definitely feel like some of my natural oils have broken through this foundation, which is actually kind of surprising because I don't really have oily skin. I like the way it looks, like I like that look, but if you don't, or if you have really oily skin, keep that in mind. You're gonna wanna put maybe a better primer underneath for that. Now, obviously I put on a moisturizing primer, so you know, I kind of knew that because I knew my skin would need it. The highlighter and contour totally stayed, so that powder did its job. I think it did a great job. Again, I think this foundation itself is just not for me. I think it stayed pretty well. Like, there's only a little bit of wear on my nose and on my chin, but not as much as I usually have with like all of the other foundations I tend to like. So it definitely will stay in place pretty well, especially if you have that kind of a problem, especially if you're setting it with powder. Powder always helps that. So I don't think the foundation is a terrible foundation. It's just you need to know if it's right for you or not. And for me, I know it's not what I like. But if you like more fuller coverage. I don't think it's a full coverage foundation, but I think it's definitely medium to full. And if I were to put a second layer on, it would have been very full coverage. So if you like that, I think you like this foundation. But if you know that you typically like foundations like I like, maybe a little more skin-like, a little bit more breathable, then you wouldn't like this one. I'm really impressed with the contour and that highlight stick. I'm excited to use that highlight stick some more because I can't believe how well it stayed. A lot of cream highlights don't stay in place as well as that one did. So that really surprised me. That concealer, I'm excited to try again with less concealer. I put a lot of it on, not really knowing how high coverage it was. And I mean, I really do feel like my under eyes, like I said, from a foot or two away look really good. It's just when you get closer. So I don't think that I hate the concealer. I just want to try it some more with maybe a little bit less on because I think that it could really provide nice coverage. I think it looks really good in photography and videoing, but like I said, in person, it's not as much. So I think there's a place for that concealer in my collection. I think it's got good coverage, and honestly, it's a lot higher of coverage than most of the concealers I own. So it's nice to have one like that. So hopefully these check-ins were helpful for you guys. Obviously, I think that you can see it really is yellow compared to my skin tone. And I'm sad because, like I said, this was the most neutral of the ones that were near my skin tone. So I'm just gonna have to mix something with it to make it more wearable if I decide to wear this foundation more, which maybe for events or filming only. I hope that you enjoyed this style of video. I love doing try-on hauls and I love doing check-ins. I've done them for years on my channel, but I do try to couple those kinds of first impression videos like this with updates later on so you can see like, ooh, you know, I've tried this for longer and I really don't like it even though I thought I might like it at the beginning, or vice versa. And I also like to do videos like things I've changed my mind about, stuff like that. So it will be sprinkled in throughout my channel. I'm hauling a lot this month, so I feel like there could be a sooner haul update that's kind of combined a bunch of videos and updates on a bunch of different products all in one. So like I said, stay tuned, subscribe if you enjoy it. So like I said, I hope that you'll subscribe and I hope that you'll catch me on social media. It's JamBeauty89 everywhere. I'd love to say hi to you guys, and I interact on there a lot because I'm on Twitter all the time. I'm on Instagram, you know what I mean? But I figure it's always worth mentioning. I'd love to have you over there if you've never joined. And other than that, I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.